Welcome back. And the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic has published the full exchange of messages between senior White House officials discussing US airstrikes on Yemen, following claims the journalist Jeffrey Goldberg was lying about being added to the group chat.
For more on this, let's bring in US national security expert Glenn Ignazio in San Diego. Glenn, thanks for joining us. What exactly have these messages actually revealed to us?
Yeah, looking into more detail, which more was released actually today, it does give specific information of certain F-18s and when they were going to be overhead their target, MQ-9 Reapers, which are attack drones, and what type of weapons they were going to use on these targets. So while that information is sensitive, they come out of classified documents. So it should be considered classified. And really, here in the US, we're watching Democrats really blow it out of proportion and Republicans actually try to bring it down to less than what it actually is. It's a serious, serious situation.
Are they blowing it out of proportion, though? I mean, I think we're still trying to get our heads around how this happened. It is pretty astonishing. And is it true when the White House claims it wasn't classified information? What does classify as classified, if that doesn't?
It's a great question. And so what we see is we see on our side, the Democrats are sort of saying this is such a over malicious, intentional kind of thing, or I wouldn't say malicious, but an intentional kind of thing. And it wasn't. But at the same time, Republicans saying that it's not sensitive information. Hey, look, at being one of the people that are overhead targets, anytime that I'm overhead a target and when I'm going to be there, that is sensitive because it gives the adversary the ability to basically attack me. I don't want people to know when I'm overhead.
No.
So it is, in actuality, it is sensitive information, but there's a lot of semantics being played here. And honestly, they have to look at the legal precedent. Were certain laws broken? That's really the straight brass tacks as finding out what the implication is on this.
And the result of all this, too, has been a verbal slinging match. We've seen the US Director of National Intelligence admitting it was a mistake, but only after Trump called them a total sleaze bag.
Yeah, I mean, seeing the names slat around, there's a lot of redirection and deflection going on. I mean, the idea that Mike Waltz did take ownership and say this was a mistake, and I believe, honestly, it was a mistake. They should know better. But again, it wasn't malicious and so forth, but it's the idea of, a policy that makes sure this does not happen again, or those tools are not used for that. The last policy that I saw in a letter was 4 years old that says you shouldn't be using this. So I think there needs to be a refresh that this is not a system you should use for sensitive targeting or anything like that. That's really what needs to happen.
All right, well, all that mudslinging aside, does this actually breach security for the US? Does the US now end up in a vulnerable position internationally?
Well, in all honesty, is before the attack is, of course, sensitive. You don't want to divulge, but after the attack, you already know when the aircraft were launched, what aircraft, and what target it was. So, as far as that perspective, that's not classified anymore because the operation's over with. Beforehand, yes, it would be. So, does it put us in a vulnerable spot? Not really. It would have been before the actual strike, and that's passed. But the idea that is anybody else using this for that type of information, that would be a concern. So I think, again, a policy change is saying this is not going to be used for formalities or formal information is needed.
All right, Glenn, as always, thank you for that insight. Really appreciate it.